About 66 million years ago, there was a strange animal that lived in the floodplains. It was half hawk, half bird, and all attitude. Anzu wyliei, also known as the chicken from hell, ran quickly through old swamps. Its feathers, claws, and bright bone head sparkled in the sun. It was evolution's weirdest experiment, a live preview of the first birds, born just before the dinosaurs' world fell apart. It had the body of a predator and the beak of a parrot. The discovery of the chicken from hell. In 2014, experts told the world about a dinosaur they called the chicken from hell. It sounded like a joke. But Anzu wyliei wasn't something to laugh about. It was found in South Dakota's Hell Creek Formation and was one of the weirdest and most interesting fossils from the whole Cretaceous era. Imagine a dinosaur with feathers, long legs, a sharp beak, and a head that looked like a rooster's. It would be like a big bird that wasn't quite a bird. It looked like a mix of a hawk, an ostrich, and a bad dream. The fossils of Anzu were first unearthed in the early 2000s, scattered across layers of sandstone and mudstone that once formed ancient floodplains. 3 partial skeletons were found, each remarkably well preserved. When paleontologists from the Carnegie Museum of Natural History and the Smithsonian began piecing them together, the full picture was almost unbelievable. Here was a dinosaur nearly 10 feet long and 5 feet tall at the hip, covered in feathers and built like a bird, yet clearly not one. The Hell Creek Formation, where it was found, is legendary. It's the same region that produced fossils of Tyrannosaurus rex, Triceratops, and Dakotaraptor. But Anzu wyliei was unlike any of them. While the others were massive, muscular beasts, Anzu looked fragile, light-boned, fast, and bird-like. It had a long, narrow tail, thin, hollow bones, and arms with 3 clawed fingers. Its head ended in a toothless beak, crowned by a tall, thin crest of bone. The name Anzu comes from Mesopotamian mythology, a feathered demon bird, and it fits perfectly. Its species name, wyliei, honors Wiley J. Tuttle, the grandson of a major donor to the Carnegie Museum. Together, the name captures both its beauty and its menace, a creature that seems too strange to be real. The fossils showed that Anzu lived about 66 million years ago, just before the asteroid that ended the dinosaurs. It inhabited a world of river deltas, lush floodplains, and seasonal wetlands, a hot, humid environment teeming with life. This setting made the discovery even more shocking, because similar dinosaurs had been found mostly in Asia, not North America. Before Anzu, scientists thought oviraptorosaurs, the group it belonged to, had never reached the Western Hemisphere. But here was proof that they had crossed continents, thriving alongside the last great dinosaurs. When researchers reconstructed the skeleton, they realized just how strange it really was. Its long legs suggested a fast runner, capable of sprinting across open plains. Its arms were muscular and flexible, perfect for grasping. Its neck curved like that of a modern bird, and its skull bore that delicate crest, thin as an eggshell and shaped like a sail. It wasn't a weapon. It was decoration, something it likely used to attract mates or intimidate rivals. But what made scientists really pause was how many worlds Anzu seemed to belong to at once. Its claws hinted at a predator. Its beak looked like a plant eater's. Its feathers suggested warmth and social behavior. It didn't fit neatly anywhere. Not fully dinosaur, not fully bird. It was a living experiment in evolution, a bridge between 2 eras. Dr. Matt Lamanna, one of the paleontologists who described it, called Anzu the most bird-like dinosaur outside the birds themselves. Yet unlike modern birds, it had a reptilian tail, long clawed fingers, and a skeleton made for running rather than flying. It may have behaved like a cassowary or emu, omnivorous, territorial, and highly intelligent. Its discovery filled a massive gap in the North American fossil record, proving that bird-like dinosaurs had spread far and evolved in parallel with their Asian relatives. Terrible things were said by the skeletons as well, Some of the skeletons had broken ribs and claws that were bent, but the wounds had healed. This makes me think that Anzu was violent and may have fought over territory or mates. Its weak crest probably played a part in those fights, showing bright colours during shows before things got physical. What Anzu looked like. In Hell Creek 66 million years ago, it was hot and swampy. If you could go back in time, you would see something strange moving quickly through the ferns that were tall and looked like a bird. It wasn't a bird of prey. It wasn't a rooster. Seeing it move would make you wonder where dinosaurs stopped and birds started. It was Anzu wyliei. At nearly 10 feet long from beak to tail and standing 5 feet tall at the hip, Anzu was about the size of a motorcycle, but far more agile. Its body was lean and hollow-boned, designed for speed. From a distance, it would look like a giant feathered bird, but as it stepped closer, the illusion would break. Its long arms ended not in wings, but in 3 sharp claws. Its face wasn't covered in a beak of smooth keratin, but a bare, scaly surface crowned with a tall crest of bone. Its tail, stiff and muscular, gave it balance while it sprinted, like a natural counterweight. The skin on its legs and hands was likely scaly, but the rest of its body was cloaked in feathers. Not the smooth, aerodynamic feathers of flying birds, but shaggy plumes, meant for display or warmth. Think more cassowary than eagle. The fossil record doesn't preserve colour, but based on comparisons with related species, scientists believe Anzu could have been vividly patterned, possibly streaks of red, black or orange, to show dominance or attract mates. In bright light, it would have looked half majestic, half terrifying. The top of its head was especially peculiar. The head was long and thin, and the beak was small and blank. The tip of the beak was slightly bent downward, making it perfect for cutting through eggs, plants, or meat. That clear crown rose above it. It was as thin as cardboard and shaped like a blade. It was probably a visual signal because it was too flimsy to use in battle. Some experts think that males had crests that were bigger or more colourful, like peacocks or cassowaries do today. That means that Hell Creek may have once been filled with more than just roars. It may have also been filled with feather shows, poses and moves that looked like dances. Its arms were long, muscular and flexible, among the most bird-like of any non-avian dinosaur. Each hand had 3 fingers tipped with curved claws, strong enough to grip or tear. It could grab branches, dig for eggs, or snatch small animals with a single motion. Its shoulders were built to swing wide, allowing full range of motion. Fossils show its claws were blunt on the inner edges, but sharp on the tips, perfect for hooking or holding, not slashing. That's a sign it wasn't purely a hunter, but an opportunist, using its hands for all kinds of tasks. The legs were its true weapons. Long, lean, and packed with muscle, they gave Anzu the speed to outrun predators and chase prey. Its feet ended in 3 forward-pointing toes and 1 smaller one at the back, like a bird's foot, ideal for gripping muddy ground or leaping forward in short bursts. Trackways of related species suggest it could sprint faster than most large dinosaurs, possibly reaching 30 to 40 kilometers per hour. On the floodplains of Hell Creek, speed meant survival. Scientists often describe Anzu wyliei as looking like a demon bird or a prehistoric cassowary. Both comparisons fit perfectly. It had the speed and feathers of a bird, but the muscle and menace of a dinosaur. Its mix of traits, beak, feathers, claws, crest, and long legs, wasn't random. It was evolution experimenting, merging the old reptilian blueprint with the beginnings of modern bird anatomy, the oviraptorid family tree. To understand where Anzu wyliei fits in the world of dinosaurs, picture a family tree that goes across continents and is made up of strange, bird-like creatures that seem to grow very quickly. Anzu was a member of a group of animals called keneggnathids. These animals were related to Asian oviraptorosaurs. They were one of the most interesting parts of evolution. Dinosaurs that looked and behaved like birds, but weren't quite birds yet. The story of this family begins around 90 million years ago in Asia's Gobi Desert. There, paleontologists unearthed fossils of oviraptorids, small to medium-sized dinosaurs with short faces, parrot-like beaks, and feathers covering much of their bodies. The first oviraptor ever discovered was actually mistaken for an egg thief, found near a nest of what scientists thought were stolen eggs. Decades later, it turned out the thief wasn't stealing them. It was protecting its own nest. That discovery completely rewrote how scientists viewed these dinosaurs, not as sneaky scavengers, but as bird-like, caring parents. Canagnathids, the group that Anzu belonged to, were the North American cousins of those Asian oviraptors. They shared the same family traits, toothless beaks, long legs, and feathers, but evolved in isolation after the continents split apart. That separation led to their own distinct look and behaviour. While Asian oviraptors were often small and compact, Anzu and its relatives grew larger, with longer limbs and lighter bones adapted for open floodplain habitats instead of dry deserts. For a long time, paleontologists couldn't even agree where to place Anzu's group. Their skeletons combined features from so many different dinosaur families that they seemed like evolutionary puzzles. Their skulls were hollow and bird-like, but their tails were long like raptors. Their hands resembled those of early predators, yet their hips looked more like herbivores. Some scientists thought they might be ancestors of true birds. Others argued they were a failed side branch, an experiment evolution abandoned before it could take flight. The discussion changed when fossils like Anzu were found that were almost whole. Scientists could finally make out the links after carefully studying and digitally scanning the bones. Anzu's structure proved that Canagnathids were definitely in the Oviraptorosaur group. They were in the middle, between more basic Oviraptorosaurs like Caudipteryx, which still had small teeth, and more advanced oviraptors that had no teeth at all. To fill in a key gap, Anzu was the link between the first winged theropods and later bird-like forms. The similarities between these families go deeper than appearance. Many oviraptorids and Canagnathids share traits that hint at bird-style behaviours. Their strong but hollow bones point to a light body plan, possibly warm-blooded metabolism. Their forelimbs show evidence of feathers arranged in a pattern similar to wings. Even their hip bones are shaped in a way that suggests a more upright, bird-like stance, something that would have allowed smoother walking and faster sprinting. How far their growth spreads is one of the most fascinating aspects about it. Fossils of Oviraptorosaurs have been found in Mongolia, Alberta, and South Dakota, showing that these animals lived all over the world. The most likely way they got from Asia to North America was by crossing land bridges that linked the continents in the late Cretaceous. The North American population changed over time into bigger, faster species like Anzu that did better in wetter, healthier settings. When scientists compared Anzu's skeleton with that of modern cassowaries and ostriches, the resemblance was startling. Both had long legs, short tails, and a balance of speed and stability that's perfect for life on open plains. It's as if evolution stumbled upon the same solution twice, millions of years apart. That strange head crest. When scientists saw Anzu wyliei for the first time, they looked straight at the top of its head. They were shocked by that strange, tall, very thin crest. It seemed weak and almost pretty, like something that evolution added just for fun. That's pretty much what it was. With no claws or teeth to help it stay alive, the crest was just a sign. It looked like it said, "Look at me." This crest, made of delicate bone sheets fused together, rose several inches from the top of Anzu's skull. It wasn't dense or solid. It was light and full of air spaces, more like the structure of a bird's beak than the heavy skull bones of a predator. It couldn't have been used for ramming or defense. One hit would have shattered it. That means it had another job entirely, something related to communication or attraction rather than combat. Modern paleontologists think this kind of feature was for display. In many animals, flashy or exaggerated features evolve not to help them survive, but to help them reproduce. Think of a peacock's tail, a cassowary's casque, or a moose's antlers, all used to impress rivals or mates. Anzu's crest likely worked the same way. Its thin bone structure would have been covered in keratin, the same material that makes up our fingernails and bird beaks. That means it might have had colour, maybe bright red, blue or orange, like the crests of modern birds. In the humid sunlight of the Hell Creek floodplains, that would have stood out vividly against its feathered body. Fossil evidence shows that Anzu's crest was tall but narrow, with curved edges that might have reflected light when it moved. This suggests it wasn't static. Anzu could have tilted or bobbed its head during social displays, letting sunlight flash off the crest like a signal. Picture a bird-like dance, feathers flared, head held high, crest glowing in the morning light. Such displays could have been used to claim territory, intimidate rivals, or win over a mate. Crests show up a lot in the oviraptorid family, which makes this all the more intriguing. In Asia, cousins like Sittipati and Rinchania had similar shapes. Some were tall and round, while others were short and blade-shaped. Since each species had its own style, it's possible that the crest was also used to tell species apart. In environments with lots of feathered dinosaurs that looked alike, a unique head shape or colour pattern might have helped them tell each other apart from a distance. The placement of Anzu's crest also offers clues about how it communicated. Because it sat high on the skull, near the eyes and nasal openings, it might have amplified calls or sounds. Some scientists think it could have functioned like a resonating chamber, deepening or projecting vocalizations, similar to how cassowaries make booming, low-frequency calls that travel through dense forests. Imagine the Hell Creek floodplains echoing with deep, rhythmic calls from these strange, bird-like creatures during mating season. The crest also reflects a shift in dinosaur evolution, from raw physical dominance to visual and behavioural competition. Earlier theropods like Allosaurus relied on brute strength, massive jaws, and combat displays. But by Anzu's time, many dinosaurs had evolved more complex forms of interaction: colour, sound, and posture. They didn't just fight for mates, they performed. Anzu's crest is a fossil snapshot of that transition. CT scans of its skull show that the bones beneath the crest were filled with tiny air pockets, part of the same system that lightened the skeleton and helped regulate temperature. This means the crest may have also helped with thermoregulation, allowing heat to dissipate during high activity or long runs. So while its primary role was visual, it might have doubled as a cooling system, just like the sailbacks of some ancient reptiles or the vascular crests of modern birds. The beak of a predator, the diet of an opportunist. The Anzu wyliei animal seems like it should have been a meat-eater at first glance. It was long and had claws on its legs. Its beak was narrow and sharp, like it was made to tear flesh. But paleontologists found out that this chicken from hell wasn't really a predator after all when they looked closely at its head and mouth. It ate almost anything it could find in late Cretaceous North America, which had a lot of different kinds of plants and animals. The beak of Anzu was one of the most unusual in the dinosaur world. It was toothless, shaped almost exactly like that of a parrot, with both slicing and crushing surfaces. CT scans revealed a strong lower jaw with a deep groove where muscles attached, giving it incredible bite control. But it wasn't built for sheer power, like a tyrannosaur's bone-crushing jaws. Instead, it was built for precision, quick snaps, clean cuts, and versatility. This design tells scientists that Anzu didn't stick to one diet. It could shear through tough vegetation, tear into small animals, and even crush eggs or shellfish. In other words, it was an omnivore, one of nature's most successful survival strategies. On the floodplains of Hell Creek, where food sources change with the seasons, that adaptability was everything. Picture Anzu wandering through the wetlands after a storm. It might have stopped to eat soft shoots sprouting from the mud, then turned to snatch up a lizard scurrying between roots. Later, it might have cracked open a nest of eggs left unguarded by another dinosaur. Fossil evidence from related oviraptorids in Asia supports this behaviour. Stomach contents preserved in some specimens show everything from plant matter to small bones, and even clumps of eggshell. Its beak was also slightly hooked at the tip, like a raptor's talon, giving it a slicing edge. Combined with its long, flexible neck, Anzu could reach down to pluck fruit or tear flesh from carcasses. In this way, it was both a scavenger and a grazer, a role that helped balance its ecosystem by consuming both living and decaying material. The shape of the bones around its jaw joints adds to the story. The joints were made so that they could move slightly to the side, like a bird or tortoise's mouth does today. Anzu could now grind or cut food instead of just biting it. Very few dinosaurs had mouths like that. Most had simple hinged jaws. This movement sideways helped Anzu deal with a lot of different textures, like soft food, hard bugs, and tough leaves. Scientists also noticed wear marks on the jaw edges, suggesting heavy use over time. That means it likely fed often, taking advantage of whatever it came across. Unlike specialized predators that relied on hunting, Anzu didn't have to chase food every day. It just had to find it. This flexibility could explain why Caenorgnathids, its larger family group, spread so widely across prehistoric North America and Asia. In a world shared with giants like Triceratops and Tyrannosaurus rex, being an opportunist was a survival advantage. When droughts hit or floods wiped out vegetation, strict herbivores starved, and strict carnivores struggled to find prey. But Anzu, with its flexible diet, could pivot. Plants in spring, small animals in summer, carrion in winter. It could thrive through all of it. It's surprising that this flexible way of eating developed on its own in different dinosaur groups. This shows that evolution often reuses the same ideas. It was the right mix between hunters and gatherers in Anzu. It was one of the most flexible animals of its time because it had claws, was fast, and had a sharp beak. Speed and agility in the Hell Creek Plains. One of the dinosaurs that could run fast would have been Anzu wyliei. This bird-like hunter was long, light, and lean, so it could run like a dog across the late Cretaceous floodplains of North America. In a world ruled by big dinosaurs like Tyrannosaurus rex and Triceratops, Anzu made it by being quick, aware, and hard to catch. Its entire skeleton was designed for speed and balance. The legs were long and muscular, with slim bones that reduced weight without sacrificing strength. Each foot had 3 forward-pointing toes ending in narrow claws, perfect for gripping soft ground. The structure was nearly identical to modern ostriches and emus, which use elastic tendons in their legs to store and release energy with each stride. That means Anzu could have reached impressive speeds, likely over 30 kilometers per hour, and maintained them across uneven terrain. The plains and river valleys of Hell Creek were unpredictable. Seasonal floods turned the land into muddy swamps, while dry months left cracked earth and sandbars. Anzu's hollow bones made it light enough to sprint without sinking, while its long tail acted as a built-in stabilizer. When running, the tail moved like a counterweight, keeping its center of gravity low and steady. Fossil evidence from similar species shows tail vertebrae stiffened by long tendons, a perfect design for high-speed turns and quick escapes. Its body proportions tell us it wasn't built for brute strength, but for maneuverability. While T-Rex lumbered through forests with thundering steps, Anzu moved in silence. It could pivot fast, change direction mid-sprint, and duck under obstacles. This agility made it an expert in both hunting and survival. If it chased smaller prey, it could zigzag to match their movements. If it was hunted, it could vanish in seconds behind a cluster of ferns or down a muddy slope. The hips of Anzu reveal another secret to its speed. They were positioned directly under its body, allowing the legs to swing straight back and forth rather than to the side. This upright posture, more like a bird's than a reptile's, gave it better stride efficiency. The femur, thigh bone, was short, while the tibia, shin bone, was long, another hallmark of fast runners. In mechanical terms, it had the perfect ratio for covering ground quickly. What's more, Anzu's feet show adaptations for traction. The claws weren't shaped for slashing, but for gripping. In wet or unstable terrain, this would have prevented it from slipping while accelerating or stopping. Its strong ankles absorbed shock from constant running, letting it chase prey or flee danger without injuring itself. The combination of speed, endurance and balance gave Anzu the kind of mobility that few dinosaurs could match. Speed wasn't just about hunting, it was about staying alive. Hell Creek was a dangerous neighbourhood. Raptors, crocodiles and the ever-present Tyrannosaurus rex lurked everywhere. Even smaller predators like Dakota raptor could have made Anzu nervous. Its ability to outrun rather than outfight gave it an evolutionary advantage. Like modern ostriches that sprint away from lions, Anzu relied on reflexes and timing more than brute strength. Its eyesight and coordination played a role too. The forward-facing eyes gave it excellent depth perception, letting it judge distances precisely as it sprinted. With a large brain cavity and strong neck muscles, it could keep its head steady while moving fast, crucial for tracking both predators and prey. Modern analogues like the Roadrunner use similar adaptations: sharp vision, steady aim, and quick feet. Scientists also suspect Anzu may have used its agility for courtship displays. Its crest and feathers weren't just for show, they may have been part of elaborate dances or runs performed to attract mates. Picture a pair of Anzu darting and circling each other on the floodplain, feathers flaring, heads bobbing in rhythm. What looks like a sprint to us could have been a performance in their world. Being fast also helped Anzu to exploit various habitats. Fossil evidence shows it could move between dry uplands and wet plains, crossing long distances to find food or mating grounds. That mobility would have been key during seasonal changes or environmental stress, giving it access to supplies other species couldn't reach. The feathered paradox. One thing about Anzu wyliei that stood out the most to paleontologists when they first put it back together was that it was covered in feathers. Instead of the small, pretty wings that some other species have, this one had feathers all over its arms, back and tail. It was true that the chicken from hell looked like a chicken, but its claws and head made it clear that it was still a killer at heart. Feathers weren't new by the time Anzu appeared. Many theropods, the group that includes both raptors and modern birds, had already evolved them millions of years earlier, but Anzu took feather use to another level. It didn't use them for flight. It couldn't. Instead, its feathers were for insulation, display and protection. The structure of its arm bones and shoulders shows that while it had long feathered arms resembling wings, they lacked the muscle and joint range needed to flap strongly. That means the feathers served other purposes entirely. In the humid, unpredictable climate of the Hell Creek ecosystem, insulation was vital. Mornings could be cool, while afternoons were hot and stormy. A coat of feathers helped Anzu regulate its temperature, trapping heat in cold winds and shedding it during the day by fluffing its plumage. The same adaptation that helps modern birds survive extreme environments was already in place tens of millions of years earlier. The display features of Anzu, like its tall head crest and likely bright feathers, suggest that appearance mattered as much as survival. Paleontologists suspect males had bolder or more colourful plumage, possibly with bright stripes or patches for attracting mates. During the breeding season, it might have spread its feathered arms, lifted its tail, and performed showy dances under the sun, much like peacocks or birds of paradise today. Fossils of Anzu's close relatives in Asia, like Chordipteryx and Chittipati, show fine impressions of feather filaments, some simple and hair-like, others complex and vein-shaped. These patterns help scientists imagine Anzu's appearance. It likely had a mix of both: short, fluffy feathers across its body for warmth, and longer, stiff feathers on its arms and tail for display. The feathers weren't just decorative, they helped control movement. As Anzu sprinted across open plains, the extended arm feathers could have acted as stabilizers, helping it balance and steer during high-speed turns, similar to how ostriches use their wings today. There's also strong evidence that Anzu's feathers played a role in reproduction and parenting. Many oviraptorids have been found fossilized sitting on circular nests, wings outstretched over their eggs, almost identical to modern bird brooding poses. Although no Anzu nest has been found yet, its body plan matches that behavior perfectly. Feathers would have helped regulate temperature while protecting eggs from debris, rain, or predators. A parent Anzu, crouched over its nest, feathers spread like a living umbrella, would have looked remarkably familiar to anyone who's ever seen a bird guarding its chicks. Anzu's feathers are such a paradox because they serve so many purposes. They keep her warm, look nice, and protect her. Feathers started out as an easy way to stay alive, but by the time of Anzu, they had changed into ways to communicate and show who you are. Every feather could have told something about the person's age, sex, or health. As a sign of a strong mate, bright full feathers were seen. It's possible that ragged feathers meant old age or harm. Hands made for grabbing. At first glance, Anzu wyliei's hands would make you understand right away that they were not just for show. They were great for a dinosaur that did a lot of different things, like hunting, digging, eating, and protecting itself. They were long, thin, and had curved tips. Its feathers and beak made it look like an ancient bird, but its hands were sharp, strong, and agile, just like a raptor's. Each arm stretched nearly as long as its entire torso, ending in 3 elongated fingers. The claws weren't as massive as those of Deinonychus or Utahraptor, but they were far more versatile. Their curvature and wear patterns show that Anzu didn't use them just for slashing. It used them for grasping and manipulation. Think of a bird like an emu or cassowary mixed with the dexterity of a raccoon. Those claws gave Anzu something that few other dinosaurs had: fine control. Fossil analysis reveals that Anzu's arm bones were light but strong, with large attachment points for muscles near the shoulder and forearm. This gave it excellent reach and pulling power. The wrists, meanwhile, could bend inward slightly, an ability called semi-pronation. That meant Anzu could rotate its hands enough to grab objects toward its chest, a trait that most predatory dinosaurs lacked. Imagine it crouching near a riverbank, using those claws to rake through soft mud for eggs or to snatch a struggling fish, a scene that fits perfectly with the mixed diet paleontologists believe it had. The claws could also dig. The tips were curved but not razor thin, strong enough to scrape or break through compact soil. Anzu might have used this to build nests or uncover buried food. In nesting species of oviraptorids, parents sometimes dug shallow depressions in sand or soft earth before laying eggs. It's likely Anzu's did the same. With claws like hook spades, it could have carefully prepared its nest site, then covered its eggs with vegetation or sand to regulate temperature. When not foraging or nesting, those hands could easily shift to defensive use. Although Anzu wasn't a top-tier predator, it shared its world with ones that were Tyrannosaurus rex and Dakotaraptor, both roamed the same region. If cornered, Anzu could lash out with slashing strikes, aiming for the face or neck of a smaller attacker. Its long reach would have made it difficult for anything to get close without risking injury. Even a single well-aimed claw swipe could cut deeply enough to make a predator think twice. The combination of long arms and feathers also gave Anzu remarkable balance and control while running. Ostriches today use their small wings to steer and stabilize themselves at high speed. Anzu probably did the same. Each turn of its wrist could help it maintain equilibrium during sharp movements, keeping its body upright while sprinting or leaping. It's easy to imagine those clawed arms slightly extended, feathers catching the air as it darted across muddy terrain, using aerodynamic control to stay agile. A close examination of the claw curves also shows variations between the fingers. The middle claw was the largest and most strongly curved, making it great for piercing or grabbing. The other claws, which were flatter, could be used for pulling or pushing. This difference suggests that each finger had a specific job, kind of like a multi-tool. It could pick fruit, dig up roots, take meat apart, and even tear food with its beak while holding it close. This dexterity made Anzu one of the most versatile dinosaurs of its time. It wasn't trapped by its anatomy the way many specialized predators were. Instead, its hands gave it options. Whether it was scavenging, nesting, fighting, or displaying, those claws did it all. The brain of a bird. in a dinosaur body. When paleontologists first looked at Anzu wyliei's head, they thought they would see a brain that was small, simple, and based on feeling. Instead, they discovered something much more complex, a brain that looked a lot like a bird's. Scientists used data inside its hollow skull to change their ideas about what dinosaurs could do. This dinosaur was smart, aware, and exhibited complicated behavior. Using CT scans, researchers digitally reconstructed Anzu's brain cavity and discovered that it had a large cerebrum, the region responsible for learning, memory, and decision-making. This is the same area that's highly developed in modern birds and mammals, the part of the brain that lets an animal solve problems and adapt to new situations. For Anzu, that likely meant it wasn't just reacting to its environment, it was interpreting it. It could recognize patterns, remember feeding grounds, and possibly even plan ahead. Its optic lobes, the brain regions tied to vision, were also exceptionally large. That fits perfectly with its forward-facing eyes, which gave it binocular vision, the ability to judge depth and distance accurately. Anzu didn't just see movement, it saw the world in sharp detail. This kind of vision is ideal for both hunting and evasion, allowing it to track prey or spot predators long before they come close. Its world wasn't a blur of shapes and shadows. It was a three-dimensional landscape full of colour, motion, and opportunity. The brain case also revealed well-developed olfactory bulbs, which handle the sense of smell. This means Anzu likely had a keen nose, capable of detecting food, mates, or danger from far away. Combined with its strong hearing, inferred from the structure of its inner ear, it had a full sensory toolkit. In short, Anzu wyliei wasn't just fast, it was aware, cautious, and constantly reading the world around it. Scientists think this level of sensory awareness gave Anzu an advantage in Hell Creek's unpredictable environment. Its ecosystem was full of danger, predators, flash floods, and competition for resources. A smarter dinosaur could adapt more easily, shifting from hunting to scavenging or changing territories as the seasons changed. This mental flexibility might explain why oviraptorids like Anzu thrived across both Asia and North America. They weren't the biggest, but they were among the most adaptable. The enlarged cerebrum also hints at something even more fascinating: social behavior. In modern birds, species with large brains tend to show complex social interactions, mating displays, communication, even cooperation. Anzu's feathers, crest, and expressive body language suggest it might have lived in small groups or pairs, using visual signals to communicate. The crest could have acted as a social marker, helping individuals recognize each other, while subtle movements, head tilts, feather flares, or vocal calls might have conveyed messages about dominance or courtship. Evidence from close relatives like Sitipati supports this idea. Fossils of these oviraptorids have been found in nesting poses, suggesting parental care. For such behavior to evolve, some level of intelligence and emotional awareness had to exist. Anzu, with its large cerebrum and sensory brain regions, fits perfectly into that model. It wasn't just surviving, it was engaging with others, responding to threats, and possibly protecting its young. Its brain shape also tells us about its movement and coordination. The cerebellum, which controls balance and muscle precision, was relatively large. That explains how Anzu could sprint across muddy terrain, turn sharply, or perform complex display movements without stumbling. Every step, turn, or leap was controlled by a brain fine-tuned for balance, the same coordination that would later allow its descendants, the first birds, to take flight. What's also notable is how Anzu's brain fits into the bigger picture of how dinosaurs evolved. Theropod brains got more complicated over millions of years. The brain-to-body ratio steadily went up as dinosaurs evolved from simple species like Allosaurus to more complex ones like Anzu. This shows that dinosaurs were smartening up. Near the top of that list was Anzu. It was smarter than most other big snakes of its time. The nesting grounds of the oviraptorids. Nesting is the behavior that changed the way experts think about dinosaurs for good. 100 years ago, it seemed impossible that these terrible lizards would have taken care of their young, but remains of oviraptorids, which is the family to which Anzu wyliei belonged, broke down that old idea. They showed dinosaurs not as cold, lone killers, but as caring parents who made nests, watched over eggs, and may have even brooded like birds do today. While no confirmed Anzu nest has ever been found, its close relatives provide the blueprint. In Mongolia's Gobi Desert, paleontologists have unearthed dozens of oviraptorid fossils sitting directly atop their eggs, arms spread wide in a circular pose identical to a bird brooding its clutch. Those nests contained up to 24 eggs, laid in perfect rings. The adult's body fit neatly in the centre, its feathered arms covering the eggs like a living incubator. It's hard not to imagine Anzu wyliei doing the same on the humid floodplains of Hell Creek. A creature part dinosaur, part bird, crouched over its future hatchlings. The oviraptorid nests were architectural marvels. They weren't just piles of dirt or sand, they were carefully arranged structures. The eggs were placed in spirals or arcs, sometimes 2 layers deep, with the blunt ends pointing inward. This orientation wasn't random. It allowed warm air and moisture to circulate more evenly, keeping the embryos alive in the volatile Cretaceous climate. Such precision implies planning and learning, suggesting these dinosaurs didn't rely on instinct alone. They refined their nesting techniques across generations. For Anzu, nesting would have been a family event. Its long arms, covered in feathers, were perfect for spreading heat across a wide surface. Feathers didn't just serve for display, they acted as insulation, helping maintain egg temperature. The adult might have adjusted its position during incubation, just like modern birds do, to ensure the entire clutch received equal warmth. Its weight, though substantial, would have rested mostly on its legs and tail, keeping its delicate eggs safe beneath its belly. In the predator-rich world of Hell Creek, guarding a nest was dangerous. Creatures like Dakota raptor or small mammals could easily raid unprotected eggs. That's why scientists think Anzu likely nested in colonies, much like seabirds today. Group nesting provided strength in numbers. Dozens of adults could protect a shared area, warning each other of threats. Fossil trackways of related species hint that oviraptorids may have gathered seasonally for this purpose, returning to the same sites year after year when the wetlands flooded and new vegetation sprouted. Parental care likely extended beyond incubation. Once the eggs hatched, the young were probably precocial, able to walk soon after birth, but still dependent on their parents for safety. Adults might have guarded feeding grounds or led their chicks to shallow water where insects and plants were plentiful. The sharp beak that served Anzu so well as an omnivore also made it an ideal provider. It could gather soft food for its young or crack open small fruits for them. Fossil evidence of bone microstructure in oviraptorids shows signs of extended growth, meaning the young stayed near adults for longer than hatchlings of most reptiles. Another bird-like trait. The social behavior that nesting required also points to advanced communication. Whether through vocalizations, body language, or visual displays, Anzu must have interacted frequently with others of its kind. Its tall crest and vivid feathers likely played roles in both courtship and group coordination, bright signals to attract mates or to warn intruders away from nesting sites. But what's even more extraordinary is how this behavior makes you feel. Fossils of oviraptorids that were buried alive on top of their eggs during sandstorms show that the parents refused to leave their nests, even though they were buried alive. That amount of natural defense is almost the same as what we would call loyalty. The ecosystem of Hell Creek. 66 million years ago, the Hell Creek Formation, which is where Anzu wyliei lived, wasn't the dry, rocky desert it is now. It was a rich wetland that goes through Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, and Wyoming today. In this warm and wet world, rivers wound through thick woods and swamps steamed. There was life in every part of the land. The dinosaur story was coming to an end, and Anzu lived in the middle of it all. The Hell Creek ecosystem was as diverse as any on Earth, gigantic herbivores like Triceratops and Edmontosaurus roamed in herds, tearing through ferns and cycads. The ground shook when Tyrannosaurus rex appeared, the apex predator towering over everything. Crocodiles basked in the sun, turtles drifted in rivers, and birds already flitted between the trees. But Anzu wyliei didn't compete with the giants. It thrived in the spaces in between, on the forest edges, along riverbanks, and in the open wetlands where opportunity was everywhere. Fossil soil layers tell us that Hell Creek's climate was subtropical, with hot summers, rainy seasons, and cooler winters. Floods constantly reshaped the terrain, carving out new lakes and burying old forests under mud. For a creature as adaptable as Anzu, this ever-changing world was ideal. When plant growth surged after the rains, it could graze on vegetation and fruit. When the waters receded, it could hunt small prey or scavenge what the floods left behind. The vegetation was dense, but not yet dominated by flowering plants as in today's forests. Instead, Anzu's world was filled with ferns, conifers, and ginkgo trees, with early flowers just beginning to spread. Seeds and soft fruits would have been easy targets for its sharp, versatile beak. Insects buzzed everywhere, and amphibians filled the marshes, another endless food source for a clever omnivore. But Hell Creek wasn't peaceful. Every sound could mean danger. Raptors like Dakota raptor hunted in packs, and smaller mammals, some no larger than squirrels, darted underfoot, always hiding from something larger. Crocodile-like predators lurked in the rivers. Even the weather could kill. Droughts turned the land into cracked clay fields, while flash floods could drown entire herds. In this world, survival wasn't about strength alone. It was about adaptation and awareness, and Anzu wyliei excelled at both. Its interactions with other species tell an even richer story. Paleontologists believe Anzu coexisted closely with herbivores like Triceratops and Edmontosaurus, scavenging carcasses left by larger predators or feeding on plants the herbivores trampled. It wasn't a threat to the giants, but a shadow presence, darting in and out of the chaos of feeding grounds, cleaning up what others left behind. It also likely competed with smaller omnivores and early birds, its intelligence giving it the upper hand in finding food and avoiding danger. The fact that Anzu lived in Hell Creek shows how complicated the environment was by the end of the Cretaceous. There were no longer just one or two species that ruled the world. At this point, there were hundreds of different jobs in life, such as grazers, scavengers, climbers, diggers, flyers, and sprinters. They all filled a different need, and together they made a solid web of life that had been going on for millions of years. Anzu was an important part of that web because it could eat a variety of things and react quickly. Its eating habits linked plants, insects, and small animals. It also likely played a role in seed dispersal. As an omnivore, it might have eaten fruits and excreted the seeds elsewhere, helping spread plant life across the plains. In this way, Anzu wasn't just a survivor, it was a gardener, unknowingly shaping the future landscape. The desert origins of its ancestors. Anzu wyliei's story started in the hard deserts of Asia, long before it ran across the green floodplains of North America. They came from Mongolia's Gobi Desert, which has a lot of fossils and is one of the best places in the world to find fossils. The Asian oviraptorids lived in the Gobi's dunes and dry valleys long before Anzu did. Their bones were the first to show experts how bird-like these dinosaurs really were. More than 80 million years ago, the Gobi wasn't as barren as it is today, but it was still a landscape of extremes. Scorching days, cold nights, and scarce water. Only the adaptable survived. There, oviraptorids like Oviraptor, Sittipati, and Rinchenia thrived. They were smaller, shorter-legged, and often more compact than their North American relatives, built to withstand both drought and sandstorm. These early species laid the foundation for what Anzu wyliei would become, creatures with toothless beaks, feathers, and strange crests that blurred the line between reptile and bird. The discovery of oviraptor fossils sitting on nests, perfectly preserved in brooding position, was the first real proof that dinosaurs cared for their young like birds do. These finds, made in the 1920s and 1990s, completely changed how scientists saw dinosaurs. Before that, oviraptorids were thought to be egg thieves, hence the name oviraptor, meaning egg snatcher. But new evidence revealed the truth. They weren't stealing eggs, they were protecting them. That moment of redefinition, from thief to parent, reshaped dinosaur science forever, and Anzu inherited that same reputation for intelligence and social behaviour. How did this lineage from the desert get to the swamps of Hell Creek, which is halfway around the world? It has to do with how continents move and drift. In the late Cretaceous, there was sometimes a land bridge that went across what is now the Bering Strait between Asia and North America. Since the beginning of time, animals have gone back and forth between countries. On both sides, fossils of caenagnathids, which are a larger group of dinosaurs related to Anzu, show that these dinosaurs slowly spread across the northern hemisphere, changing to live in different places as they went. When the first caenagnathids arrived in North America, they found a paradise compared to the Gobi's deserts, wide rivers, thick forests, and an abundance of food. Evolution took the desert survivor's blueprint and reworked it for life in the wetlands. Over time, the newcomers grew larger and faster, trading compact bodies for long legs and lighter frames. Anzu wyliei was the final result, a desert descendant turned floodplain runner. Despite the environmental shift, traces of its desert origins remained in its anatomy. The thin, hollow bones that made it fast also helped it conserve energy in hot conditions. The crest on its head, so visually striking, may have also functioned as a cooling surface, radiating heat, much like how modern cassowaries use their casques in tropical forests. Even its omnivorous diet was an ancient inheritance. Its ancestors in Mongolia had already evolved the versatile beak and flexible jaw joints that allowed them to eat almost anything: plants, eggs, small animals, and carrion. The amount of decoration on fossils from the Gobi and Hell Creek is another big difference that stands out. The crests of most desert oviraptorids were shorter and more compact, but Anzu's was tall and swept out. It seems that crests became more useful as long-distance sight cues after animals moved to areas that were more open and wet. To put it another way, Anzu's bright show behaviours may have come from the quiet ways its desert ancestors communicated. The dry land made people strong, and the marsh made people see things. The migration of these dinosaurs also reveals how dynamic the world was at the end of the Cretaceous. These creatures weren't confined by continents. They were explorers, adapting again and again as environments shifted around them. Anzu's very existence in North America is a fossilized record of movement, a story of evolution stretched across oceans and time. Display, dance, and dominance. Anzu wyliei's long legs, feathers, claws, and huge, paper-thin head made it look like a cross between a nightmare and a stage act when scientists first put together its skeleton. But when paleontologists looked at Anzu's muscles, brain, and body measurements, they saw that it might have been more than just a strange mix of features. It was made to do its job. It looked like it was meant to be displayed in every way, from its head to its feathers. In nature, showmanship is serious business. Modern birds, especially those descended from dinosaurs, use dance, colour, and sound to compete for mates or territory. Anzu likely did the same, turning its open floodplain home into a prehistoric stage. Males may have gathered in specific areas, like birds of paradise do today, to perform elaborate rituals while females watch from a distance. Its feathers could flare like banners, its wings spreading wide to flash bold patterns. Each movement of its long arms and head crest would catch the light, signalling strength and vitality. That thin, towering crest wasn't built for combat. It was built to be seen. CT scans of its skull show that the crest was hollow and fragile, ideal for display, but useless as a weapon. The bone's surface texture suggests it was covered in keratin, meaning it could have been brightly coloured. Scientists can't yet tell what hues Anzu displayed, but if it followed modern bird logic, males probably had the flashiest crests, deep reds, oranges, or blues, that stood out against the green backdrop of Hell Creek's forests. Behavioural clues come from its relatives. Fossils of oviraptorids like Citipati show sexual dimorphism, differences in crest and feather shape between males and females. This pattern strongly supports the idea that Anzu's crest was for mating displays. Its long tail feathers could have worked like a peacock's fan, rising and swaying in rhythmic patterns. With its speed and balance, Anzu could perform fast, sweeping motions, circling, leaping, even stamping the ground in ritualistic moves that kicked up dust and drew attention. With a large cerebrum and strong sensory processing, Anzu could read visual cues and respond to rivals or mates. Scientists believe that these performances weren't just random flailing, they were communication, a form of language written in movement. A dominant male could warn competitors without fighting, or impress females with stamina and grace. The smartest, most precise performers likely earned the right to mate, passing on their genes and their choreography to the next generation. These displays weren't just for mating, they also helped maintain social order. In species that lived in small groups or nesting colonies, clear visual signals prevented constant fighting. A flash of colour or a raised crest could be enough to establish rank. Dominant individuals with the biggest crests or best dancers got first pick of food, nesting spots, and mates. Subordinates knew their place without needing to risk injury. Feathered display behaviour might also have been used during parenting. In oviraptorids, fossils show adults protecting eggs or chicks, and colourful feathers could have served as signals to their young. Flashes of colour meaning stay close or danger nearby. If Anzu shared this trait, its bright crest wasn't just for pride, it was part of a complex communication system. The fossil that rewrote the oviraptor story. North America's oviraptorid puzzle was missing a lot of parts before Anzu wyliei was found. Paleontologists had found pieces like beak fragments, hand fragments, and spine fragments, but nothing that put them all together. The oviraptor family seemed to be unique to Asia, especially in the Gobi Desert in Mongolia. Then Anzu showed up in the Hell Creek Formation, almost completely preserved. This changed everything experts thought they knew about where these creatures lived and how far they spread in an instant. The first fossils of Anzu wyliei were found in the early 1990s, but it took years to fully recognize what they meant. 3 partial skeletons were eventually recovered from separate sites across South Dakota and North Dakota. When researchers from the Carnegie Museum of Natural History began comparing them, they realized they belonged to the same species, and not just any species, but a giant feathered oviraptorid, unlike anything seen before in the Western Hemisphere. For decades, oviraptorids were considered almost exclusively Asian. Fossils like Oviraptor and Citipati came from Mongolia, and their unique features, toothless beaks, crests, and feathers, seem confined to that part of the world. North America, by contrast, was known for its tyrannosaurs, ceratopsians, and duck-billed dinosaurs. The discovery of Anzu in the Hell Creek Formation suddenly revealed that these 2 continents had been sharing more than anyone realized. Through detailed bone analysis, scientists confirmed that Anzu was a canonuthid, a close relative of Asian oviraptorosaurs. Its anatomy bridged a massive gap in dinosaur evolution, proving that this group had a global range by the end of the Cretaceous. The shape of its limbs and hips showed that oviraptorids had diversified far beyond their desert origins, adapting to wetlands, floodplains, and even forest environments. Anzu wyliei wasn't a local oddity. It was proof of a worldwide family that had quietly flourished alongside the better-known giants. Its nearly complete skeleton gave scientists their first real look at what a North American oviraptorid looked like in life. The long arms, bird-like hands, and lightweight body confirmed the theory that these creatures were feathered. The tall, hollow crest on its skull linked it visually to Citipati and Rinchania. But subtle differences in bone texture hinted at separate evolutionary paths. It was the first direct evidence that these families evolved independently after spreading between Asia and North America, a case of parallel evolution shaped by different environments. One of the most stunning things that was found was that Anzu was much bigger than its Asian cousins. As big as most oviraptorids, it was. It was almost 10 feet long and weighed about 500 pounds. It wasn't just a scavenger or an egg eater. It was a powerful mid-level herbivore that could hunt smaller animals for food. Paleontologists had to rethink what part oviraptorids played in the environment after this discovery. They didn't just play a special role, they were active, flexible, and sometimes even the best rivals in their surroundings. The fossils also contain microscopic clues about lifestyle. Bone tissue studies showed rapid growth rates, meaning Anzu reached maturity quickly, another bird-like trait. Its hollow bones reduced weight but didn't compromise strength, proving that large, feathered dinosaurs could evolve advanced skeletal systems without needing to fly. Even the shape of its pelvic bones revealed a posture similar to that of modern ostriches, emphasizing speed and agility. The species was officially named Anzu wyliei in 2014 after the feathered monster Anzu from Mesopotamian folklore and Wiley J. Tuttle, who is the grandson of a gift to the museum. Paleontologists also called it the chicken from hell, which is a more casual name. The name just seemed right. It was found in Hell Creek. It had feathers, a beak, and long legs that looked like birds' legs. It also had claws and a mean personality. This fossil didn't just fill gaps in the record, it reshaped the evolutionary tree. With Anzu in place, paleontologists could now trace clear connections between Asian and North American oviraptorids. It proved that dinosaurs were far more cosmopolitan than once believed, capable of crossing continents and thriving in radically different environments. The finding by Anzu may have had the most shocking effect on culture, though. People really liked it. The first thing people thought of when they saw a dinosaur was a huge winged bird with a raptor-like attitude. Just before the asteroid hit, the species started to be shown in museums as an example of how strange and risky evolution could get. It became a sign of the idea that dinosaurs were not fixed, dumb monsters, but living, clever beings with a huge range of traits. The dual nature of its beak. Scientists were particularly curious about Anzu wyliei's mouth, not its feathers, speed, or showy crest, which were all very strange about the animal. It looked simple at first, like the beak of a modern bird, but the way it was built inside revealed a mystery. This dinosaur's beak wasn't just for cutting or biting. It was an experiment in evolution that showed how far nature was willing to go to make things work better. Unlike meat-eaters, such as T-Rex or Velociraptor, Anzu had no teeth. Its jawbones ended in a sharp, keratin-covered beak, shaped like the cross between a parrot's and a turtle's. For years, paleontologists assumed that meant it was mostly herbivorous, feeding on leaves, fruits, and soft vegetation. But CT scans and microscopic studies of wear patterns told a different story, one far more complex. The front of its beak, where the upper and lower jaws met, was razor-thin and tightly compressed, ideal for slicing and tearing. This part could shear through tough plant stems or rip flesh from carcasses. In contrast, the rear section of the beak was broader and slightly curved, forming a natural crushing surface, perfect for grinding seeds, cracking eggs, or even breaking small bones. It was a split-purpose design, one part precision blade, one part built-in crusher. This unusual combination made Anzu wyliei one of the most flexible feeders of the late Cretaceous. It didn't rely on a single food source. It could switch diets as easily as flipping a switch. During lush seasons, it could graze on low-growing plants or pluck fruits from branches. In harsher times, when vegetation thinned or drought struck, it could turn scavengers, tearing at carcasses or raiding nests for eggs. That adaptability is one of the reasons its family, the Caenagnathids, lasted so long across multiple continents. Researchers who examined Anzu's jaw musculature discovered something else. Its bite wasn't strong, at least not compared to predators like T-Rex. But it didn't need to be. Its power came from control and speed, rather than brute force. Like a modern bird, it could make small, precise movements, adjusting its grip with surprising finesse. That fine motor control opened up an entire range of possible foods. Small lizards, insects, tubers, or even shellfish pried from muddy riverbanks. Chemical analysis of bone isotopes backs this up. Fossil samples from Anzu show a varied nutrient signature consistent with a mixed diet, not purely meat or plant matter, but both. It seems evolution had crafted an all-terrain eater, a dinosaur capable of thriving in a world that changed from floodplain to drought cycle year after year. Its success wasn't about being the strongest or fastest, it was about being the most adaptable. The shape of its jaw joint supports this theory too. The joint allowed slight sideways motion, unlike most dinosaurs that could only open and close their jaws vertically. This gave Anzu a mild grinding ability, letting it chew in a way that few theropods could. When paleontologists saw this feature under CT imaging, they immediately recognized how unusual it was. It suggested Anzu could process food more efficiently than many of its contemporaries. In life, that meant an Anzu standing on the banks of a Hell Creek river could do just about anything. It could snatch a fish from the shallows, grab a fallen fruit, or rip open a carcass left behind by a T-Rex. Its curved claws might have even helped it dig for roots or insects. This level of dietary flexibility was rare among dinosaurs, most of which were highly specialized, either hunters, grazers, or scavengers. Anzu was all three, depending on the day. Surviving at the end of an era, Anzu wyliei lived at the very end of the Cretaceous period, just a few million years before everything changed. It was one of the most exciting times in Earth's history. Its world was rich, loud, and full of giants, but something terrible was about to happen. Every storm, drought, or change in temperature was a sign that something bigger was going on below the surface. As it turned out, Anzu was one of the last winged dinosaurs to see the sky before it got dark for good. The Hell Creek ecosystem that Anzu called home was already showing signs of stress. Volcanic activity in India's Deccan Traps was spewing massive amounts of carbon dioxide and sulfur into the atmosphere, subtly warming and poisoning the planet. Fossil pollen from this period shows a slow decline in plant diversity. Certain ferns and flowering plants were dying out, replaced by hardy species that could tolerate unstable climates. That shift rippled up the food chain, hitting herbivores first and eventually reaching predators and omnivores like Anzu. Yet, despite the growing instability, Anzu adapted. Its omnivorous diet gave it flexibility in a time when specialists struggled. If plant life dwindled, it could scavenge. If small prey disappeared, it could turn to fruit or eggs. That versatility, a product of its strange dual-purpose beak and quick intelligence, made it one of the last dinosaurs to maintain a steady population even as ecosystems faltered. Fossils of Anzu appear very close to the Cretaceous-Paleogene boundary layer, meaning it survived right up to the event that ended the age of dinosaurs. Then came the flash. The asteroid, 6 miles wide, struck what's now the Gulf of Mexico with the force of billions of nuclear bombs. Within minutes, everything changed. The impact unleashed tsunamis taller than skyscrapers, global shock waves, and enough debris to turn the atmosphere into a furnace. Fires swept across continents. For a brief, unbearable time, the Earth glowed red. For creatures like Anzu wyliei, the days after the impact were worse than the impact itself. The sunlight disappeared behind a blanket of dust and ash, plunging the planet into freezing darkness. Photosynthesis stopped, plants withered, and food chains collapsed. Large dinosaurs starved quickly. Smaller omnivores like Anzu might have lasted longer, scavenging whatever remained, but without plants to regrow, insects to swarm, or prey to hunt. The ecosystem simply ran out of fuel. It's likely that Anzu stood strong for a while others fell. The bird's feathers kept it warm in cold weather. Its diet let it be flexible when there wasn't enough food. It might hide, dig, or move. But those benefits went away too in just a few months. More than 3/4 of all species on Earth were gone when the dust finally cleared, and Anzu wyliei was one of them. The chicken from hell had lived longer than the giants, but not longer than the end of the world. Its extinction, though tragic, was also a turning point. the same evolutionary traits that defined Anzu, feathers, light bones, warm-blooded metabolism, intelligence and parental care, didn't vanish. They lived on in its descendants, the earliest true birds. The line between Anzu and modern avians isn't just theoretical, it's anatomical. You can trace the bones in a bird's wing, the hollowness of its skeleton, even the nesting behaviour of robins or ostriches, directly back to creatures like Anzu. The bird connection. You might think Anzu wyliei was a huge bird if you saw it from far away, with its feathers sparkling in the sun and its head held high on two long legs. You wouldn't be too far off either. Its body is full of clues that it is related to current birds. Scientists are becoming more and more sure that Anzu wasn't just like a bird. As a piece of the bridge between dinosaurs and birds, it showed what evolution was about to bring to the world. The similarities begin with the skeleton. Like birds, Anzu had hollow bones, reducing its body weight while keeping it strong. This air-filled design, known as pneumatization, made it light and agile, perfect for sprinting and sudden bursts of speed. Its long, S-shaped neck gave it the same range of motion we see in herons or ostriches today, allowing it to strike quickly at food or scan its surroundings for danger. Even its pelvis and hips were rotated in a bird-like fashion, letting it stand upright with its tail off the ground, the same posture that birds inherited millions of years later. Then there's the feathers. Though direct feather impressions haven't yet been found with Anzu fossils, its close relatives in the oviraptorid family, especially Caudipteryx and Psittaparti, show clear evidence of plumage. The structure of Anzu's arm and tail bones matches theirs almost exactly, leaving no doubt that it too was covered in feathers. These weren't soft down feathers like a chick's, they were varned, structured feathers, the kind used for display, insulation, and possibly even limited gliding. Feathers that started as thermal protection for early theropods had, by Anzu's time, become multifunctional tools for communication and survival. The parallels continue with the beak. Anzu's toothless jaws, sharp at the edges and curved at the tip, are strikingly similar to the beaks of modern omnivorous birds such as emus and cassowaries. The keratin layer that coated its beak was the same material that makes up a parrot's bill or a hawk's talons today. This wasn't coincidence. It was evolution testing an idea that worked. By losing teeth and adopting lighter, tougher beaks, Anzu and its kin paved the way for the entire diversity of bird diets that exist now, from seed eaters to scavengers. Its arms too blur the line between wing and limb. Long, with 3 slender fingers tipped with curved claws, they resemble a halfway point between a raptor's grasping hands and a bird's folded wings. The wrists of Anzu had a unique swiveling joint that allowed the hands to rotate inward, the same movement birds use to fold their wings. While Anzu couldn't fly, its limb flexibility was part of the engineering blueprint that would make flight possible later in evolution. Even its breathing system foreshadowed that of birds. Air sacs in its hollow bones acted like bellows, moving oxygen efficiently through the body. A lightweight and high-performance design that let Anzu run fast without overheating. This adaptation, seen in fossils of related species, hints that oviraptorids had metabolic systems far more advanced than most reptiles, maybe even approaching the warm-blooded efficiency of modern birds. Behavioural evidence makes the link even stronger. Fossilised oviraptorids found brooding on their nests are almost perfect replicas of how modern birds incubate eggs, arms spread wide, body lowered over the clutch, feathers covering the eggs to keep them warm. The eggs themselves were arranged in circular patterns, identical to modern bird nesting behaviour. It's very likely that Anzu wyliei did the same. That kind of parental care, patience, protection and nurturing represents one of the most bird-like behaviours any dinosaur could display. But there's more to the link than that. Anzu's big brain and sharp senses mark a major shift in the development of dinosaurs. The parts of its brain that control vision, balance and movement are bigger than they should be. These are the same parts of the brain that are overdeveloped in birds. This meant that Anzu wasn't just responding to its surroundings, it was also fully understanding them, noticing trends, remembering routes, and maybe even talking to other animals through sounds and sights. To scientists, Anzu wyliei represents a missing chapter made real. Before its discovery, the fossil record had Asian oviraptorids on one end and true birds on the other, with little connecting them in North America. Anzu filled that gap beautifully. It proved that bird-like dinosaurs weren't isolated to one continent or climate. They had already spread worldwide, experimenting with anatomy, intelligence, and behaviour long before flight fully evolved. Why evolution made, and then erased, Anzu. Anzu wyliei was one of evolution's bravest tests because it was a dinosaur that crossed the lines between bird and hunter, strong and weak, reptile and performant. It was fast, smart, beautiful, and able to change. It seems like it should have been one of the great prehistoric survivors. But Anzu was gone for good only a few million years after it first showed up. Not only how did it live, but also why did evolution make something so amazing and then destroy it? To understand that, you have to look at Anzu's world through the lens of change. It lived during the late Cretaceous, a time when evolution was working overtime. The planet's ecosystems were reaching their peak complexity: lush forests, warm seas, and a network of species that had fine-tuned their balance over millions of years. But that stability came at a cost. When life becomes specialized, even small disruptions can send shockwaves through the system. And Anzu's timeline aligned with one of the most unstable periods Earth had ever faced. The first challenge came from the sky, not the asteroid, but the climate itself. Volcanic activity on the other side of the world began altering the atmosphere, leading to unpredictable weather and shifting habitats. Floodplains turned to drought-stricken basins, while forests that once thrived started thinning out. For a species that relied on open wetlands and river systems, this meant constant displacement. Anzu had to adapt again and again, something it did remarkably well, until the planet changed too fast even for it to keep up. Then came the asteroid. The impact didn't just destroy Anzu's ecosystem, it reset evolution. In a matter of years, the complex web of life that had taken hundreds of millions of years to form was reduced to ashes. When sunlight vanished under layers of dust, photosynthesis stopped. Plants died, herbivores starved, and predators, no matter how clever or adaptable, had nothing left to eat. The age of dinosaurs ended not because they failed, but because the world they ruled simply disappeared overnight. But evolution doesn't truly waste its creations. Anzu wyliei's design, its feathers, its hollow bones, its bird-like posture and brain, didn't vanish. They were repurposed. The traits that once defined Anzu became the foundation for the only dinosaurs that survived the extinction: birds. In that sense, Anzu wasn't erased. It was absorbed into something new. Think about it this way. In the late Cretaceous, evolution was trying out a lot of different ideas. Anzu was one of its most bold designs. It was a test run for what a feathered, warm-blooded, smart dinosaur could be like. That thing never took to the air, but it had everything it needed to fly. It already had wings, arms, and a good balance. When the extinction event was over, groups that had similar traits just changed even more. Small, winged theropods' offspring took Anzu's heritage with them as they flew into the sky. Anzu is so appealing because it shows a change that is still happening. It wasn't a mistake for evolution to happen, it was a part of the process. Nature does not move in a straight line. Instead, it tries, tests, and improves. Anzu's flimsy crest, beak that could both slice and crush, and long arms that were made to show off all tell a story of testing new things. Even though that exact mix didn't make it, parts of it are still found in hawks, herons and other birds. In a way, Anzu's extinction wasn't an end, but a trade-off. Its body vanished, but its ideas didn't. It passed the torch to creatures better suited for the post-impact world. Lighter, smaller, more energy efficient. The giant dinosaurs faded and evolution rebranded them with feathers and flight. Consider living in the ashes of the Cretaceous, a long time after the last Anzu died out. You might think that life has lost its creation, but give evolution time, 66 million years to be exact, and you'll see that it never really stopped shaping. In the past, Anzu wyliei could race across the floodplains. These days, sparrows and eagles can run through the sky over cities and soar over mountains. In the end, Anzu wyliei vanished with the rest of its world, but its legacy never truly died. Every bird that struts, dances or defends its nest carries a spark of that strange, feathered survivor from Hell Creek. Evolution didn't end its story. It simply gave it wings. If you enjoyed this journey into the prehistoric past, hit like, subscribe, and stay tuned for our next episode, where we uncover another creature that pushed evolution to its limits and almost changed life on Earth forever.